It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Being selfless is easy when being selfless is fun.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the founder of happyfamilies.com.au and Channel 9's parental guidance host, co-host, parenting expert. I'm here with Kylie. Well, still not quite here with Kylie. Kylie, hello.
Hello.
Just want to make sure you were there. We are not in the same room. We're not in the same studio. For those who have missed the podcast lately, Kylie is away. Kylie has moved the family to the coast. We're moving to the coast in our entirety as a family in a few weeks' time. Right now, Kylie's there with the kids enrolled in school, and I'm still in Brisbane packing up the house, getting the tradies to come through and make everything ready for it to be sold, and missing you terribly. But at least we get to record the podcast together each day.
That's the highlight of my week.
She says as she lounges on the beach watching the waves roll in. Because you've done that, I want to share something absolutely awful with you, but it's got to be it's got to be done. Whether you like it or not, we have got to do this because in the last week or so, Baby Shark has become the number one YouTube clip ever in the history of the world with more than 10 billion views. How does that happen?
Shark do-do-do-do-do, baby shark do-do-do-do-do, baby shark do-do-do-do-do, baby shark.
And I just wanted to share that with you, Kylie, because if you're going to be on the beach, on the sands of the coast, wouldn't it be great to have that buzzing through your head?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That kind of ties in with our topic today. We've had somebody send us a message and say, my kids are so selfish. How do I teach my kids to not be so selfish? And we thought that we would answer that because like this happens, right? We look at our kids and we think, oh my goodness, how did I birth you? How did I raise you? Haven't I taught you better? How's it going with the selfishness with the kids? I mean, you're in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit with 4 daughters right now. I've got one of them down here. The other one's moved out and married. How's the selfishness going around the bathroom in that little unit that you're in?
There's a rule now that you actually can't lock the door. There's only one bathroom. Okay. You just have to deal with the fact that you may be walked in on at the moment.
So when I arrive on the weekend so that we can share some time together, can we change that rule, please?
There's no lock.
There's no lock on the door?
Not in the bedroom.
But what about in the bathroom?
Oh, yes, in the bathroom you can lock the door.
Okay, you confused me for a second. Next week we're going to follow up on that. You know what? Before we get to this idea of selfishness, there's one more thing that I've got to mention. A couple of days ago, we had a conversation about caught in the act. You remember that podcast episode?
How could I forget?
Well, one of our employees, one of our team members, I won't mention which, shared her caught in the act story with me the other day.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the baby monitor was downstairs.
Oh.
And so were the entire family while she and her husband were in the bedroom, and everyone heard everything.
No.
Isn't that terrible?
Oh, no.
Anyway, we're all over the place with this podcast. You're on the coast. I'm in Brisbane. Baby Shark has had more than 10 billion views and is the most watched YouTube clip in the history of ever. And we've had somebody who was caught in the act in a way that you would never want to be caught in the act. Let's talk about the topic for today, Kylie, teaching our kids to be less selfish. So the kids are fighting over the bathroom, and there is that temptation, isn't there? Like when you've got lollies and no one else has got it. It's kind of fun, isn't it, to just go, oh. Like when you were a kid, did you used to eat your ice cream slower than your sisters so that yours would last longer, and then they would look at you longingly as you continued to lick that ice cream right in front of their faces?
Never.
Oh, I used to do. And what about bags of
Never.
chips? You'd buy a bag of chips and eat your chips really slowly, one crinkle at a time?
No, I don't know how to do anything slowly.
Right.
But my sister, she did that all the time. She used to literally, we'd get Mars bars as kids. That was a really big treat for us. And she would eat all of the casing of chocolate on the outside first, and then she'd eat the nougat layer, and then she'd eat the caramel layer until she ate the last layer.
What a mess. But what
it was the most painful thing to watch because I'd finished mine like half an hour ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I used to do that to my sisters and my brother all the time. I'd just tease them. And I would literally, as they'd finished theirs, I'd still have half a packet of whatever it was left. And I'd go, this is so good, as I ate it in their face. So selfish. So we've got this parent who's saying, how do we help the kids to not be so selfish? And you know what my first tip is?
Tell me now.
First tip. This is so weird. Doing a podcast with you and having you not in the room. My first tip is remember what you were like as a kid, because my guess is that you probably weren't the angel you think you were. And there's probably, maybe I'm revealing too much about myself, but there's probably some history there. There's probably a whole lot of things that you did when you were a kid that were selfish, that were entitled. I mean, parents are always saying, oh, my kids are so entitled. But do you remember, Kylie, were you entitled as a child?
If you ask my mum, I was the perfect child.
Right, yeah. Actually, your mum does speak very highly of how good you were. But
I think that's a really important concept here, is that more times than not, our children won't display selfishness 100% of the time. And if we are constantly focused on the times that they do, we actually miss the times that they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, before we actually started recording, you and I spoke about our children and the different characteristics that they demonstrate. And we've got a few kids who from time to time can be really, really selfish. But then you highlighted a bit, hang on a sec, think about this time and this time and this time. And all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, you're exactly right.
yeah, when you change the way you see your child, you actually kind of change your child. You actually change who they are. You change the way they exist. You get a different child. It's kind of like when you're looking for all of the problems, you'll find them. But if you only look for the good stuff, you'll see that as well. And that's really what we're talking about with these kids. I mean, sometimes I look at them and think, no, just no. And other times I think, you are such an angel. You are so sweet. You're so unselfish. That was so kind. And so I think we've got to just remember that. And you know what else, Kylie? Let's just look at us for a moment as parents. Like you and I, and any parent who's listening to this, we get cranky at the kids.
We'll never ever share a wee spa.
You get cranky. Well, we get cranky at the kids. I won't share my wee spas. Full stop. End of story. Like my wee spas are not negotiable.
You don't even share them with me.
They're dad's special treat. But every parent has. Maybe it's not about sharing treats or something like that. But every now and again, as parents, we like. I just want some time for me. I want to be selfish for half an hour. I want to go to the toilet in peace, for goodness sakes. And I think that as parents,
but is that being selfish?
Well, no, and I'm not saying that that's selfish. I think that it's a basic human right to be allowed to toilet in
Look, I think about our girls, and I think about the times, a context matters. If you've got a child who's been working a part-time job and she's saved up some money and she's bought herself a beautiful new dress, and her sister walks in 24 hours after she bought it and asks if she can wear it to, her friend's birthday party, and she says no, is she being selfish?
Yeah, what a great question. And that's something that every family is going to navigate as they deal with kids who have just received that Christmas present or that birthday present. Do you have to share your birthday present an hour after you unwrapped it and pulled it out of the box? We sometimes, and I think this kind of ties in with the second thing that I want to highlight, and that is the developmental realities. Sometimes our expectations, sometimes our children's capacity to do things comes down to the context. It's everything, and I'm glad you raised it. After the break, 3 more ideas to help your kids to be less selfish.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Imagine a home where discipline got results without anyone having to feel bad or in trouble. The Do's and Don'ts of Discipline is a webinar to help parents set limits with love, compassion and humanity. Find it now at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we're talking about how we can teach our children to not be so selfish.
3 other ideas that I think can really help to reduce selfishness with our kids. The first one that I'm going to recommend, Kylie, is basic manners. Like there's some people will say kids don't need manners. I'm not going to teach my kids manners. They can use their manners if they want to, but I'm not going to enforce it. I'm not going to demand it. And I reject that idea for the fundamental reason that when you teach children manners, you're teaching them to be considerate of others. You're teaching them to take perspective, to have some empathy, to express a level of gratitude, even if it's a basic level of gratitude. I think that if we want to have kids who are not selfish, we need to teach them to say please and thank you. We need to offer them that guidance. My 4th idea, Kylie, for helping us to raise children to be less selfish is to actually make helping fun.
We've talked about this lots on the podcast over the years, the different things that we do to kind of encourage our children's participation around the house. Our hands down most successful, I want to say tactic, would be our 10-minute tidy.
Yeah.
put on some fun music and, it can be as loud as the neighbours can take or not. And everybody just gets in and gets stuff done.
There's kind of this expectation in our kids' head, isn't there, that if I'm going to do something selfless, it's going to be hard and horrible and I'm going to miss out. Whereas when I'm selfish, it kind of feels good because I get what I want. And by reframing it, by making helping fun, not only are we considering the perspective of another person, we've got some empathy and recognise that there's a contribution that everyone needs to make, but being selfless is easy when being selfless is fun. When the kids can, like you said, crank up the music, when they can have time together with us, it makes it much easier to be selfless rather than selfish.
I'm hoping that we've got some clarity out of all of the things we've shared. So can we just do a recap?
Yeah, let's do a quick summary. So first of all, your kids are kids, and you were probably selfish when you were a kid. They're probably selfish when they're kids, and that's normal. It's developmentally appropriate. And they're not always selfish. Sometimes they're anything but. Sometimes they're so giving and so selfless. So let's focus on that stuff rather than the rough stuff, and just accept that the rough stuff is going to exist.
We talked about basic manners, teaching our kids to say please and thank you, and having a sense of gratitude and being able to articulate the things that they're grateful for would really help.
Yep, and the last couple of things we talked about was make helping fun, because it's really easy to be selfless when you're enjoying yourself, and encourage psychological flexibility. We really hope that you've enjoyed the Happy Families podcast, even if it's coming to you in a kind of a strange way. Can't wait to see you, Kylie. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. And if you'd like more info about making your family happier, especially how you can be better together as a couple, we've got a brand new webinar coming up for Happy Families members. It's included in your membership. If you're not a Happy Families member, this is one that you won't want to miss. All of my best relationship hacks and tips, all of the best science and evidence to help your relationship thrive, even with the kids around. For more info, visit happyfamilies.com.au.